Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 269 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host, Joey Coastman. I'm joined, as ever, by one of my best friends in this entire world. It is, of course, the former heavyweight world title challenger himself, Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how are you today, man?
I'm good, my man. How are you?
All good. Always good. Always good when speaking with you, my friend. Same as ever. This podcast is going to be pretty simple. It's going to be kind of, done in the classic way. We're going to do the review part, then we're going to bring in one guest, then we're going to do, that's going to be part one. Then in part two, we're going to go over the news. Eddie's quiz question will be revisited, and then we'll do the preview part, and then the show will end on the second and final guest. And it's good because, during the lockdown, we've had a bunch of, fighters on from the yesteryear, ex-world champions, people like that. And it's been quite a while, really, since we've had any prospects on the podcast. We kind of go for guys at the top level of the sport, really. So that vibrator's on again, Eddie.
Oh, no, that was the...
Sorry, that's... Wait, pause.
No, yeah, I just realized what you said. No, that was somebody sent me a message.
It's all good. But no, I was gonna say it's been quite a while since we had a prospect on the podcast. So we've got two this week. We're back to two guests, which is the way we usually did things before the lockdown. So a bit of a return to normality. Anyway, let's start with the review part. We're going to start here at the Wembley Arena in London, United Kingdom. Last week, I'm going to start with the undercard. A win for Lerone Richards. He moved to 14-0. I kind of expected him to get his opponent out of there, really. Timo Lane managed to go the distance. It was only an 8-rounder, but Lerone Richards absolutely shut Timo Lane out. Lerone Richards, obviously, in his first fight with Matchroom, so he's now 14-0. Also on the bill, Shannon Courtney picked up a win. She's now 6-1. A TKO for her against Dorota Narek. Narek was down prior to the stoppage. It was a good fight, actually, that one there, because Narek came to fight, but the shot that put her away, it was a hellacious punch, actually, from Shannon Courtney. It really was. It was a one-punch knockout, and it was brilliant. I think Narek did get up, but she'd had enough. She just went straight back to her corner. She didn't want to fight, and you couldn't blame her. It was an absolute beauty of a punch, really, from Shannon Courtney. So she's now 6-1. Good for her to return to winning ways as well after that defeat to Rachel Ball. Elsewhere on the card, James Tennyson picked up a win. He's now 28-3. A first-round KO against Josh O'Reilly, who was actually undefeated going in. 16-0 going in. James Tennyson, obviously, a guy who is strange, man. I said it on Twitter. He's kind of like caught in between levels, because I think he's better than British level. He's better than European level. He's been a European champion. He's been a British champion. But then when he stepped up against Tevin Farmer, and James Tennyson, by the way, is absolutely massive for the weight. And that fight was at super featherweight. He's now moved to lightweight, and he's massive for lightweight. This guy's a giant. But when he got in there with Tevin Farmer, even though he's got so much punch power, he could not trouble Farmer, and Farmer actually took him out, which Farmer doesn't usually do to opponents. So that didn't look good. And obviously he's kind of since then picked up a few wins, but not really against fantastic opposition, so it's kind of hard. He is definitely better than European level, but I don't think he's world level, so he's somewhere in between, but there isn't anywhere in between. So he's found himself in a bit of a situation, but hopefully he gets a world title shot. Johnny Nelson afterwards, I mean, I wanted to kind of miss it, but for him to say that James Tennyson is a guy he'd favour against Gervonta Davis, that was quite spectacular to come out of someone like Johnny Nelson's mouth. I mean, couldn't believe what I was hearing there. Anyway, moving up, a good win, like I say, for Tennyson. Josh O'Reilly, you know, really thrown in the deep end. You know, he kind of padded out his record, and yeah, he was down I think 2 or 3 times. But anyway, the main event, Billy Joe Saunders, he's now 30-0. I think a shutout on one card. It was very wide in the end. The defense of his WBO super middleweight world title against Martin Murray. I believe that was Martin Murray's 5th attempt at a world title. He's now 39-6 with a draw. It was exactly how I predicted it'd be, really, for Billy Joe Saunders. You know, it is quite disappointing to think that he was going to perhaps get the Canelo fight. Then coronavirus happened, and then there was all sorts of rumblings and you know, rumours and stuff like that about him not being ready for a proposed new date, and then you heard it was a load of rubbish, then you heard it wasn't. It was really kind of confusing, but to think that he boxed here and what's it, about 10 days later or something like that, 2 weeks later, he is going to be watching Canelo take on a fellow Brit. It could have been him. I don't know why the fight didn't happen. It's just bizarre. But here he was against Martin Murray. And yeah, like I said, it was exactly how I saw it. A wide points win. Non-eventful, really. I think he dropped Martin Murray but didn't actually get the credit for it because the referee ruled it a slip. But other than that, he didn't look like he had Martin Murray going at all at any point. And that wasn't surprising. It was literally bet your money on Saunders to win on points. It was free money. It really was. So yeah. It's kind of stagnated his career now. You know, the big fights just haven't happened. He was supposed to box Andrade, I think, twice. He was supposed to box Canelo. That didn't happen. I don't know really what he's doing. It's just, you know, it's another boring win. I think his stocks kind of go down again. And he's got Zach Parker now, I think, closing in on a mandatory position. So he's going to be breathing on his neck now. And Zach Parker's a young fighter, very, very good, improving all the time, while Billy Joe's kind of stagnated. I'm not saying I'd favour Zach Parker if they were to fight, but, you know, I'm not sure what Billy Joe's doing. It's just quite disappointing, really. You know, I don't know where he goes from here. Hopefully a big fight, but, you know, I just think the way his career's been going, his recent performances, I'd favour Andrade over him for sure, 100%. Some people won't be happy with that, but that's just me being honest. Moving on swiftly, and I'm happy to do so. Going to go over here to the Church House in Westminster, London, United Kingdom. Let's start with the undercard. A good win for Dennis Mccann. He's now 8-0. A learning fight, really, against Pedro Matos, who I expected to kind of get knocked out early, really. He went the distance, over 8 rounds. It was a good learning fight, like I say, for Mccann. You know, he showed a lot of variety in there. I was quite impressed with him, despite him not getting the stoppage that I thought he'd get. But, all in all, like I say, good learning fight, good experience for him. Chris Bulk picked up a win. He TKO'd in 2 rounds Michael Ramabaletsa. That one was for the vacant WBC International Super Bantamweight title. A good win there for Chris Bulk. Hopefully he gets something, you know, substantial after that win there, because that was quite impressive. He's now 9-0. And the main event, Lyndon Arthur, now 18-0, a split decision win over 12 rounds against Anthony Yarde, who's now 20-2. Big underdog, big upset there. It was for the vacant WBO Intercontinental Light-Heavyweight title and Lyndon Arthur's Commonwealth title. We're going to be speaking to Lyndon later on in the show, but yeah, just my thoughts on that fight there. I'm going to run through the rounds as quick as possible. The first round I gave to Lyndon Arthur. There wasn't really much in it at all, but Arthur was able to ping Yarde with the jab a few times. Round 2, close round, not much action. Yarde was was kind of struggling to get in range. Lyndon's reach played a factor. Perhaps I just edged it to him, so I had him up by 2 there. Going into the third round, Arthur, for me, just stole the round again on his jab. Yarde was really struggling with his shorter reach. He couldn't get past Arthur's jab. He needed to step to the side and perhaps open up an angle for himself, but I had it a complete shutout after 3 for Lyndon Arthur. Lyndon's long arms were really helping him out there. Round 4, for me, I gave it to Yarde that round. He landed a nice right hand early on in the round, which Lyndon took really well, to be fair to him. Yarde also remembered to move his head this time, and therefore Lyndon's jab wasn't as effective as it had been in the previous rounds. Yarde was also able to get closer to the target and land a jab of his own a few times. 3-1. Going into the 5th round, for me, again, I gave it to Arthur. Yarde really wasn't doing enough at all. Arthur landed a decent left hook of his own and a good power jab. Both men could have been doing much more than they were doing, I thought, at that point, but Yarde was just seeming to let it slip away. Not too much action in the fight there through the first 5 rounds. Round 6, it was a very, very, very close round. I thought perhaps maybe I might edge it to Yarde, but it really could have gone either way. There was no urgency from Yarde at all. He was being hit with jabs. He landed a nice right hand on Arthur, but again, Arthur took the shot well. It was such a hard round to score. It wasn't a good round. I thought maybe even Arthur might have edged it. I had just decided to give it a 10-10, which I don't, I try not to do. I try to avoid doing that, but I gave it a 10-10 in the end. Going into the second half of the fight, the 7th round was a big round for Lyndon Arthur. And when I say big round, I meant he was excellent with his jab. Like I say before, the reach was key. The quick hand speed as well that he had was really impressive, and he was great with his jab. So again, another round for Lyndon Arthur. Round 8, I gave to Yarde. Yarde started to close the gap. He did well with body shots and his own jab. Round 9, I gave it to Arthur. He was beating Yarde to the punch. He also landed a great right hand on Yarde early in that round. Round 10, I gave it to Yarde. Probably the most action-packed round of the fight at that point. Round 11, I gave to Yarde as well. You could see the urgency finally was there, but it was just too late on my card. I needed him to get the stoppage to win, or at least a knockdown or 2 at that point. Yarde throughout the whole fight was unable to cut off the ring as well. He was just following Lyndon Arthur around, and he needed a big 12th round. And he did come out, and to be fair to him, he had quite a big round. He tried to get the finish. He let he let everything go. He left it way too late though in the fight, and he should have done these things earlier. Arthur was in trouble, but he was able to kind of hold on. But I just really didn't like the tactics from Yarde. I think he kind of slipped up from the very beginning. He started too late, and Lyndon Arthur again, barely threw a right hand at all. It was a complete masterclass with the jab, with just one arm, and to think that Yarde couldn't beat him with one arm was a little bit shocking, really, because no one expected Lyndon to win the fight with 2 arms, let alone 1. But I think the fact that he had to stay in that position and could only jab, it meant that he wasn't risking being hit while trading, and that could have spelled danger for him, to be honest. So I think having 1 arm in the end probably worked out safer for him and better for him. But yeah, in the end, my final scorecard after giving that 10-10 round, which again I gave in the 6th round, my final scorecard was 115 to 114 in favour of Lyndon Arthur. Like I say, if that round in the 6th would have gone to Yarde, it would have been a draw on my card. If it would have gone to Lyndon Arthur, he'd have won by 2 rounds. But yeah, really impressive from Arthur, and I'm looking forward to speaking to him later on. But yeah, that's it for that one. Moving out now stateside to the AT&T Stadium in Texas, in Arlington, Texas. I'm going to start here with the undercard. A good win for Sebastian Fundora. He boxed Habib Ahmed, who, to be honest, isn't fantastic. He's kind of known really for his loss to Gilberto Ramirez for the super middleweight world title, and here he was boxing down at 154. So maybe he was a little bit depleted, I don't know, but he got in there with Sebastian Fundora, who's now 16-0 with 1 draw, and Sebastian Fundora being 6'5.5" and a southpaw at super welterweight, 154, is quite a problem. And yeah, he was able to stop Fundora in just 2 rounds, which is, quite impressive, because Gilberto Ramirez, it took him 6 rounds, so he's done it in a third of that time there. So Fundora, perhaps big things for him in the future. We shall see. What a crazy thing though, man. 6'5.5". And the main event, let's just move straight up to the main event. Errol Spence Jr., 27-0 now. A unanimous decision over 12 rounds against Danny Garcia, who's now 36-3. Defense there of Errol's WBC and IBF welterweight world titles. To be completely honest with you, Eddie, I don't want to spend too long going back and forth like we did, but it ended up being the fight I kind of predicted it'd be. I think Danny had a good go. I really think he had a good go, but he just wasn't good enough in pretty much every area. And Errol won on points just like I, expected it would go.
Well, honestly, with me, it was the pace. It was not the pace. It was just Earl was busier. Earl was busier. He was more consistent throughout the rounds. Danny landed good shots. Danny was doing well, but his problem has always been, and this is why he's had those issues like with Sean Porter. He's even had it with I always get his name, Keith Thurman as well. And it's not so much stepping up to that level, because I believe he's as good. I think it's just him waiting on the perfect shot too much. And while he's waiting, these guys are still working. You know what I mean? And Earl Spence, that's been his thing. That's his calling card. He's busy. He's on the gas. He's landing shots. He's putting pressure on you. That's his style. So if you're going to be able to compete with him, you're going to have to be able to somewhat keep pace, or at least give him something that he has to worry about, and give something to the judges to actually say, okay, I can see I can give him this round, because the scores are going to be wide when you see a guy busy all the time and it seems like he's winning rounds. You understand what I'm saying? The rounds that I felt like Danny was in most of the rounds. Like, he had opportunities to win a lot of the rounds, but it was the consistency. It was Earl coming in with his jab constantly, and by the way, his jab was excellent that night. It was just like, it was on the money constantly. It kept Danny off base. He wasn't able to land as many counter shots based on the jab, because they always kept him offset. But I felt like Danny did a pretty good job in finding certain spots for his shots to land, but it was just too few and far between at times. And he would win rounds. He would be in the rounds. Like in the first 3 or 4 rounds, I felt like he was very much in each round. But the problem was, once again, Earl's jab, and the fact that Earl was going to not only jab, but he was going to keep that pressure on, keep that constant glove in his face throughout the entire round for the most part. The only time that you've seen Earl lose a string of rounds was when he kind of let off the gas and he was kind of moving around and just not being busy, not being himself. And then all of a sudden he comes back in the last 2 rounds again to try to turn things up. But at that point, Danny was realizing that it was to the point where it was a little bit of desperation. So he had to kind of pick up the pace a little bit and, get on the job with the combinations and the shots. But it was like, yo, if you would have done this even 3 rounds before and kept it consistent, a little more consistent, you don't have to throw punches as many as Earl's throwing, but you just throw combinations, throw 2s and 3s, you know what I mean? Keep the jab in space. If you don't want to constantly throw power shots, at least keep the jab. It's kind of like what Earl was doing. He wasn't constantly throwing power shots. If you look at the stats, they landed the same amount of power shots. It was just Earl's jab that was the difference, and he stayed consistent. You know what I mean? So Danny has the ability. He's right there with the rest of them. The problem is waiting on perfect situations. There is no perfect time. There is no perfect situation in a fight. You're there to punch. And trust me, I know people have been saying this to me from the beginning of my career all the way until now. So I understand now, looking at being on the outside, not being the guy, what it means to do that. And if he would have done that, he would have definitely talking about a different result in this fight.
Yeah, and like I say, Danny definitely tried, especially early on, but I think as the fight kind of wore on, Errol got into his groove. But I've been saying it for a long time, and I'm going to say it again. I just really want to see Errol take on someone who is a good, true welterweight, or a big welterweight. That's just what I want to see. I mean, if we look back at the last 5 years of his career, you know, he took on Chris Algieri in 2016 in April, obviously a smaller guy moving up. Then he took on Leonard Bundu, former European champion who was 41 years of age, obviously beat him. Then he obviously took on Kell Brook, who we know was coming off that knockout loss to Golovkin. He had to have his eyeball took out of his skull, crashing the weight. It's nothing to do with Errol, but you know, it was what it was. There were circumstances there. Then he takes on Lamont Peterson, another guy moving up. Then he takes on Carlos Ocampo. He obliterated him. He stopped him in one round. But when you look through his resume, he kind of padded himself out to 22-0. Then he takes on Mikey Garcia, the smallest of them all. But yeah, I give him credit for that. You know, he was brilliant that night there. Then he took on Sean Porter. It was a very, very close fight. And then he takes on Danny Garcia, another guy who, like I said, a lot of people were agreeing with what I said last week, hasn't really had a brilliant or a outstanding win at welterweight. He's another smaller guy moving up. I just want to see him in there with, and I've got a list of guys that I want to see him in there with. It's funny because one of them, well, two of them actually are smaller guys moving up, but I want to see him in there with. I'd like to see him in with Pacquiao. I don't mind that fight. Obviously a smaller guy. I'd like to see him in with Crawford, obviously a smaller guy. And then the other two I'd like to see him in with, I think he has trouble with, Keith Thurman and Yordenis Ugas. Even though Ugas sometimes can really show up or sometimes can not show up at all. But anyway, I'd like to see any of those happen. That's the end of the review part, though. We've gone through that as quick as possible. So just before we wrap up part one, the final thing to do, of course, is to welcome our first guest on this week's podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the reigning Commonwealth Light-Heavyweight champion. It is, of course, Mr. Lyndon Arthur. Lyndon, welcome to the show, my man.
Absolutely. WBO Intercontinental champion as well.
WBO Intercontinental as well. Slap that in there, no problem. So listen, Lyndon, I don't think there's anywhere else really to start other than your excellent win on Saturday evening over Anthony Yarde. Obviously, you were a big underdog going in. Talk us through the fight from your perspective, my man.
It was just a great fight, you know. It was just a fight of two great fighters constantly thinking in there. It was a real chess match. It was a real chess match. There was no real war. It was a fight of two guys that were just, was in there just constantly being made to think and box a smart fight, and I feel like I boxed a better fight.
And obviously, it surfaced afterwards that you'd hurt your hand. I think people kind of saw during the fight that it didn't look quite right. I've heard also it hasn't been quite right for actually quite a long time. What is the status with your hand? What's actually up with it, my man?
I couldn't tell you. I'm gonna get an X-ray. I'm sure they'll let me know.
Okay, cool. And when exactly did you injure it, Lyndon?
It's a few weeks ago, you know.
A few weeks ago. Did you ever consider pulling out of the fight at all?
No, not at all. I feel like I'm good enough to do what I did, and not only that, this fight was a big fight. If I pulled out of that fight, people would have thought I was scared and I was lying. So that wasn't even an option.
Because I say this because a lot of people obviously thought that, they favoured him. They thought he'd win the fight. If they thought you only had one arm, they definitely think he's going to win. But obviously you boxed tremendously with that factor. He did kind of try and throw the kitchen sink at you in the final round, but obviously it was way too late on in the day for those tactics to work. Were you ever in any real trouble in that 12th and final round?
Not at all. I mean, like I said in the polls, he caught me with a good body shot. So the body shot wasn't even that hard. It was just a good shot, and it hit me right across the belly, right across the abdomen, and it took my wind out. And because it did that, I felt like I didn't know if he knew he hit me and he caught me, so I had to stand my ground a little bit and stay there, and like I didn't want to go back too much, and that's why he was able to catch me again. But the shot that he caught me with, the right hand, it didn't hit me. It just caught me off balance because I squared up when I threw the right uppercut. I had my faculties all in order. You can see if you watch the fight, I was able to defend after that and tie him up. So I was never in any dangers to get stopped or anything like that. It just because he was throwing, it looked like that, but it was never that.
And I want to ask you as well, Lyndon, what do you think of his power? Is his power, really impressive?
You know what? I don't want to be disrespectful and say that he's not got no power, but I just feel like I must have a good chin, because I was never, again, like I said, he hit me, caught me clean in the fourth round. I think he caught me clean again in the eighth round maybe, and then he caught me again in the last round, and it was never a chance in the fight where I got buzzed at all. I've been buzzed worse in sparring, 16-ounce gloves, and then that's no disrespect to him. Maybe I just got a good chin, I don't know.
I think you've definitely answered that question. I remember him, hitting you clean, and you didn't go anywhere. You proved so many things: the chin, the ability to be able to box with one arm and be in such a dangerous fight and be able to keep it all together and mix it when you had to. You landed a couple good right hands yourself as well. To think that you were able to beat Anthony Yarde with just the jab is outstanding. And in my opinion, you did beat him. Some people thought he might have just edged it. I personally thought you edged it. I gave round 6, I scored that a 10-10. If I'd have given it to him, I'd have had it a draw. If I gave it to you, I'd have had you by 2. All in all, I had you by 1. So in my assessment, no matter what, even if I did give him that round, I don't think he deserved to win. Have you watched the fight back? Yeah, go on.
I watched the fight back twice. The second time I watched it, I was trying to give him the fight. I watched it biased towards myself, and I won the fight 7-5. When I was trying, like, any round that was close, like I thought it was close enough to give him, I give him, and in that case, he won 7-5. But the first time I watched it, I think I won about 8-4.
So you're saying if you watch it, the most bias you can be towards him, you give him the fight, though?
No. I give me the fight 7-5 by 2 rounds.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think that's pretty fair, to be honest. That's about where I saw it. I believe in another interview you did after the fight, you confirmed there was a rematch clause. Obviously, it's quite unusual for that clause to be in the contract in a Commonwealth title fight, especially on the challenger's request. Does it look like that is definitely going to be your next fight?
I'm not too sure. Again, it was right after the fight. I was just amped up. I just won. The adrenaline was pumping. I got asked a question, would you fight him again? It's like, yeah, whatever, let's do it. But my team will sort all that out. I believe in the team I've got around me, and they'll deal with what I've got to do next.
And obviously, you're not too sure what's up with your right hand yet. You've got to go for an X-ray. I'm guessing what they tell you from that X-ray determines what's got to happen to it to make it right, how long the recovery process will be. So my question was kind of going to be, when are you hoping to fight next? But I guess it's a question you can't really answer at the minute.
Yeah, obviously I look to get out early next year. Enjoy Christmas, then get out probably March, latest April. But again, we don't know until my arm is looked at, and the doctors or the nurses or whoever looks at it knows what's happening with it and knows what's good with it.
Yeah. And again, I feel like this win surely now deserves to get your name in the conversation with the top light heavyweights in the country. For a long time, people have been talking about Callum Johnson, Joshua Buatsi, Anthony Yarde. You've now gate-crashed that, in my opinion. Your name now must be mentioned whenever those other guys are mentioned.
Of course, man. Of course, he was overlooking me. Frank Warren was overlooking me, and I'm his fighter, and he was overlooking me in regards to talking about making the Yarde versus Buatsi fight. When the fight with me and Yarde has already been made. So that to me says that they just think I was going to be easy pickings, knock me out, get the Commonwealth title, go on and fight Buatsi. I thought that was disrespectful. Being the fact that the fight between me and Yarde was already made, and he's got to get past me first. So I'm definitely up there now. If Yarde was up there, then what? Then obviously I'm up there now.
Yeah, 110%. And do you see some kind of similarities, I guess, from the way the fight was spoke about? You mentioned there that they're already looking past you for Anthony Yarde's next fight. Do you kind of see it like almost like you're Joe Joyce and he's Daniel Dubois a little bit?
He's got the same kind of feel to it, I think.
Yeah.
got the same kind of feel to it. It's got the the disregard of the fact that I won more than the fact that he lost. That kind of feel that it's got to it, and it's a bit like, is this really what's going on? If I really just trained like 10 years of my life to get to my career defining fight as far as domestic level goes, to be disregarded as the winner rather than like it's like just getting praised for being a loser. Or there's excuses being made for him now. Oh yeah, he had a bad night, he had an off night. No, I was just good on the night.
Yeah, and I agree.
You know what I mean? I believe my skill set was just good on the night, regardless of what he brought.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like I say, I'm
agreeing. Because if he was able to just walk through me, I'm sure he would have done it. Because as we know, he's a knockout artist and he loves to entertain the crowd, as he says. So if he could have knocked me out, he would have knocked me out early and give the crowd and the team and the fans, the entertainment that he says he loves to give. But he knew he was winning the fight and then threw the kitchen sink at me in the 12th round just for a bit of entertainment. I don't believe it. But, it is what it is. And again, I just feel like my skill set was good on the night, working with what I had.
Yeah, and, Anthony is, he's somewhat of a, I don't know if I go as far to say friend of mine, but, he's a guy that has been on this show a number of times. He's brought me down to the gym to see him spar, stuff like that. But I've got to be honest, I've got to tell it how it is. I thought you won, and even afterwards when he said that he landed the... like the better shots in the fight. Well, that may be true at some points, but it doesn't matter. You're getting hit with 10 jabs before landing one of those good shots. You're being outpointed. That's the way I saw it.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. And for the people that say it was a boring fight or whatever, like it's like I don't understand. Like when you look at my fights and you look at my style, I'm a pure boxer with power. But if I can box to a win, I will box to a win. And if the opportunity arises, I will take somebody out. The opportunity didn't arise in that fight could take nothing away from Anthony. He's a great fighter. But I'm a boxer before I'm a brawler. Did somebody want me to go and fight the fight mid-range to short range to give him a better fight, a better chance of me? No, that's not how I box. I'm gonna stay away from him and keep him at the end of my range. Boxing about hit and don't be hit. I'm not, of course, I'm an entertainer. I love to please the crowd. But this was my biggest fight to date. The important thing for me in this fight was to get the win, the W, then move on. I look good in my next fight. But for this fight here, it was important to get the win. I had to do this because where would I have gone from here? Because there's no chance on earth if he'd have beat me, of him beating me in this fight, of him beating my name, Lyndon Arthur, in this fight, Commonwealth champion, he would have went on and fought for a world title. The rematch wouldn't even have been a dare talk about.
Yeah. No, I'm with you 100%, man. I love the way you're speaking now. I love the way you fought. Honestly, man, it was really impressive. I mentioned a couple of the top names domestically. I want to drop down a tiny little bit of a level. I think both guys I'm talking about here wouldn't be too pleased with me saying that, but a good fight that's coming up next week, next Friday. I just wanted to get your take on it if you've got any interest in that fight at some point. Mccann Pitters and Craig Richards. What do you think of that one, man?
Good fight, man. Good for the British title. That's also a title I'd love to get my hands on. But it's a great fight. They're both good, solid fighters. Richardson Peters, what is he, 6'6" or something? He's massive. He's another awkward one. Spider, solid fighter. Craig Richards, sorry. He's got power. Can box, slugs it out if he needs to. And they're a good fight. Obviously, I'm definitely going to be watching it and seeing what happens with that.
Yeah, very intriguing one. And coming down to the final couple questions, Lyndon, I want to ask you this. We're in the month of December now. Every December, I ask everyone that I speak to in that month, what's on their Christmas wish list in terms of their career for the following year. So I want to ask you, in a realistic world, where do you want to be? Where can you be this time in 2021, this time next year?
Hopefully, I'm either world champion or knocking on the door for it at least. Yeah. I mean, what now? I've beat Yarde. I'm a couple fights away from it. A fight, or maybe my next. You know what I mean? Like I'm not far from making what was a dream when I first started boxing into my real life situation. So 1,000,000%. I would love to be a world champion. I'm going to be a world champion at some point. So if that's close, then that's not on my wish list.
Yeah, man, I'd love to see that happen for you. I really would. I want to ask you this as well. If you've got any closing words just before we wrap it up, to the listeners, to your fans. I know that I've seen your Twitter followers quadruple in the last couple of days. What's your message to your supporters, to your fans, to anyone that's listening? If you want to thank any sponsors, you can do that as well. Take it away. The floor is yours, man.
Yeah, man. Like you say, my social following's gone up in mad amounts, and again, I've got a lot of messages like, no, I didn't really know you before this, but now I know you, and I'm a fan, and I'm definitely coming to watch you, and great fight, etc., etc. So just to everyone that's took the time out to send me a message, because they don't have to, whether they like me or not, they don't have to send me a message. It's overwhelming. It's just nothing but love. So I appreciate everybody that sends me a message, because it means so much. Because I'm only boxing because I love the sport and I can do it. You know what I mean? Obviously it's my career path, but at the same time, I'm doing what I love. This is fun to me. As hard as it is as sport, it's still fun. So people don't have to go out the way and message me. So thank you to them. Thank you to all my sponsors that's kept me going. Again, hard time in this COVID time, and the sponsors are people that helped me, and before COVID, helped me to be able to box full time, and keep me afloat, kind of thing. Regards to this boxing thing, so again, thank you to them as well. They know who they are. They know they've got a few that too many to mention, but I know I'm appreciative of everyone that's just in my camp, so to speak. And thank you to Pat Barrett, Tommy McDonagh, Ben Mulligan, Zelfa, Frankie McDonagh, everyone that's helped me along the way, my sparring partners, just anybody, because without them, I wouldn't be doing this interview right now. So. And thank you to you as well. Thank you to all the podcasts and all the people, the boxing fans that take the time out to do things like what you're doing now. It gets our name out there as boxers. Without you guys, those boxers wouldn't have a platform probably as much as we have. You know what I mean? So I'm grateful to be in the position that I'm in right now.
Nah, wicked words, man. Nice words. Listen, Lyndon, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you, my friend. Congrats once again on the deserved win. We look forward to seeing your next fight. Have a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year, and I hope we can speak sometime in 2021.
Yeah, man. 100% definitely. And you have a good Christmas too.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part. I'm going to start here with one piece of news that was a bit of a shame, really. It's a shame anyway. It's nothing to do with the fact that I was trying to get him on the podcast. But basically, I was trying to get Nonito Donaire on the podcast because he was set to be fighting, I believe it was on December 19th. He was supposed to be taking on former world champion Emmanuel Rodriguez. The reason he was boxing him is because I'm not sure what happened, but he was supposed to be boxing Nordin Ubali. Then Ubali pulled out for whatever reason, and Nonito was supposed to be boxing Manny Rodriguez, and then I was trying to get Nonito on the show, and then it's come out earlier this week that he has got coronavirus and that fight's off. So all the best to Nonito Donaire. I hope he has a speedy recovery. In other news, Joseph Parker, he was supposed to be taking on Junior Farr, a guy who he had a bit of history with in the amateurs. I think Junior Farr was able to beat him once or twice. They were going to be rematching, and something happened with Junior Farr's blood test, I believe it was. So that fight's now been I think maybe postponed for some time next year, I believe. So I don't think there's a date on that just yet, but we shall see. But it's a shame because they were supposed to be fighting before Christmas, and that's one fight gone. We've lost quite a few fights right before, right in the month of December, right before Christmas. We were supposed to be getting Nonito Donaire against Ubali, then Nonito Donaire against Manny Rodriguez, and then, like I say, this one here with Junior Farr and Joseph Parker, and also Luke Campbell and Ryan Garcia. They were all fights that we were supposed to get, but none of them are happening, all down to coronavirus. But anyway, that's it for the news. Now it's time for Eddie's quiz question. I'm looking forward to this. This should be quite easy. One of the listeners sent this one in. This one I think you definitely should get, Eddie. It's been sent in from the Mauler on Twitter. He says, I've got one for Eddie that he might get. He said he feels bad for you because you've took a few L's.
Well, yeah, I guess you should feel bad. Somebody, especially the ones where I knew I had the answer right and just didn't say it. That was frustrating.
Do you know what he said after he sent the question in? He said that he'll say the wrong answer and then claim he was thinking the right answer.
Truth be told, I swear, the what was it? I got the Sonny Liston one. I think. Wait, no, I didn't get the Sonny Liston. What was the two I got? I got the Foreman one.
I should keep score. I'm gonna have to go back over them and try and keep a scoreboard.
But the one with the Joe Louis, 100%. 100% I was going to say Joe Louis.
All right.
1,000,000% I was saying. And then the other one last week, I thought of Floyd Patterson, and I said, should I say that? And I said, you know what? I don't know, because I don't remember his son's name. So I was like, he probably didn't have a son. Or I didn't remember he had a son, and I'm like, oh, dumbass, Tracy Harris Patterson, and boom. Yeah.
All right, well.
So, I mean, 100% legit. But anyway, go ahead.
All right, so here is the question. Which heavyweight champion had a backing group called the Knockouts?
A backing?
So a backing group. So he had his own kind of band, and they were called the Knockouts.
I should get this one?
Yeah, man, you definitely should get this one.
And they were called the Knockouts.
The Knockouts.
Why the hell should I get this?
This is easy, man. This is easy. I knew this one like straight away, man.
Oh, the Knockouts. They had a backup band called the Knockouts. Hold on. Don't say anything yet. So now, obviously, this has to do with somebody who got a lot of fucking knockouts. That's pretty obvious, right? But I don't ever remember anyone having a band. So that's the only fucked up part about it. So I'm trying to figure out. There's a lot of people that had knockouts.
It's a heavyweight world champion, remember?
Okay, heavyweight world champion.
Heavyweight world champion, obviously. It's not Fury or Joshua.
No, it's somebody former heavyweight world champion.
If you don't get this, man, I'm going to kick myself, man.
Well, I mean, you might have to get your foot pulled back because you might be ready to kick yourself. Because and the thing is with me is like, I don't know how far in history this is. A band called the Knockouts. Like I just
think of the, think of some heavyweights that, oh my God. If you think of some heavyweights, like popular heavyweights that everyone knows about, like it's a heavyweight that I'm going to say it's not Muhammad Ali, but it's a heavyweight that everyone knows about. It's not Mike Tyson,
but it's somebody that everyone knows.
Everyone knows of this heavyweight. He had a music group called the Knockouts. I think they did some touring around America, I guess, and I don't think they were very good. But they were what they were.
Because I would have fucking remembered them. But he had a it's something starting to come to mind, but what fucking knockouts. He had a music. All right. This time I'm not going to even say a name. I was going to say something like, hold on, wait.
Have a guess. If you don't get it, I'll give you two guesses, man. If you get it wrong the first time.
What ethnicity?
What ethnicity?
Yeah.
Well,
black.
Most heavyweight world champions, have been black, really. Let's be real.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying. And he was American, right? American black.
American black. There you go.
All right, American black son. That does not narrow it down, but okay. And he's a very, very, very popular heavyweight.
He
American
was.
Black.
I'm really giving you clues. He was a very popular figure.
Oh, wait. It was the 90s era or the...
Nah, before that.
So it was before, so it was like 80s, 70s, 80s, like around the time of Ali. And fuck it, man, I'm about to just throw a guess out there. You know what I mean? And they toured her out. Joe Frazier.
Yes!
Yeah, I don't know how I got that shit. I don't know how I got Joe Frazier. I don't know how I got it right.
Yes!
Because I have fucking... that was a... You know why I guessed Joe Frazier?
Why?
Because I figured the era, and then I used to look at how he dressed. I don't remember hearing about that though. Unless I just forgot about it, because my manager was like, he dealt with a lot of those guys, and he was a really, really good friend of Ali's.
Yeah.
So, but I wasn't sure, but I just had to say Joe Frazier because it sounded like something he might fucking have. I don't know if that makes sense. But
no,
I don't know.
I remember seeing videos of Ali kind of mocking Joe's band, I believe,
Yeah, like it was the knockouts, and I'm thinking, you don't know how close I was to saying. Like when you started saying, I was like, wait, what era? Because I wanted to make sure I knew what era. And then I started thinking, when we say famous, everybody knows him. He's not Ali, he's not Mike Tyson, but he's got to be. He's one of the more famous names. If you talk about Ali, Frazier's famous. Not as famous as Ali, but he's close. You know what I'm saying? Like he's well known. But yeah, to be honest though, it's because of Ali. But anyway.
Okay, well there we go. Even if it was a guess, it was a W. And
hey, listen, I closed my eyes, threw the shot out of the dark, caught somebody, knocked them out cold. I'll win. Who gives a fuck?
maybe you're part of the knockouts. Maybe.
Yeah.
But
they weren't.
But yeah, you took me to his gym.
I did. You seen it? Yeah. We went by. It's a sad situation that it's a fucking furniture store now, but the reality of it is, and you can even see the imprint of what used to be, and I think they're keeping that there on purpose.
Yeah, for sure.
I've actually sparred there several times. It's unreal, and then now it's gone. My dad used to tell me stories about them having like shifts of guys to come in the gym because it was always so busy.
Yeah, legendary spot, which is sad to see. It has become a furniture store, which is unbelievable. But you can still see that it says Joe Frazier's Gym above the sign. Anyway, moving on to, we've done the news, we did Eddie's quiz question. I'm so pleased that you got the W there. Now we're on to the preview part. This one takes place tomorrow night, live on Channel 5. We get to see Mick Hennessy Jr. on the undercard, 4-1 with a draw, no opponent just yet. But the main event, the main attraction, Sam Eggington. He was on the show, I think it was last week. He's 28-7. He's in a 12-rounder against Ashley Theophane, who is having his first fight back in the UK for many years, I believe. I can't remember when it last was. I think it's about 7 years, something like that. Obviously, Ashley Theophane, he upped and left, packed his bags, went to Las Vegas, became part of the money team, hanging around Floyd Mayweather. He's come back from that. He's run out of his contract with Floyd, and he's kind of gone on a bit of a world tour. He's been boxing all over the place, I think in Dubai, in Poland, places like that, all over the place. And he's back home, 48-8 with a draw. He says it's going to be his final fight of his career. It's a dangerous mindset to have when taking on someone like Sam the Savage Eggington, but we shall see. Both guys friend of the show. May the best man win. Moving out now to the Wembley Arena in Wembley, London, United Kingdom. Let's start on the undercard. We get to see Florian Marku, 7-0. He's in an 8-rounder. He's boxing a guy who, because I know his original opponent had to pull out, I think maybe with Corona. And he is boxing. It's a replacement, but I can't remember the guy's name now. Not entirely sure who it was, but anyway, he's boxing a last-minute replacement. I think the guy is undefeated. I think it's Jamie Stewart actually. But yeah, Can't remember what his record is at the minute, but all the best to him. We get to see Kez Ashfaq 8-1 take on Ashley Lane 14-9 with 2 draws. Kieran Conway 15-1 with a draw. I remember being at his. I think he lost or he drew with Ted Cheeseman. I was at that fight. He takes on Macaulay McGowan, who's 14-1 with a draw. Made a best man win there. Brilliant heavyweight fight between the 2 guys that have only lost to 1 man, and that was the same man, Michael Hunter. Martin McDonagh 15-1 taking on Sergey Kuzmin with an identical record, 15-1. That's over 10 rounds for the vacant WBC International Heavyweight title. That's a good fight. Martin McCauley's already trying to look ahead, and he's saying he wants the Hunter rematch and stuff like that. Bad time to be thinking about that on fight week against Sergey Kuzmin. Kuzmin's a really good fighter. Kuzmin went the distance with Hunter. You didn't, Martin. You got stopped in the final round. So that's a brilliant fight. There's good money to be made on Kuzmin, by the way. And there's money as well in this. And I'm going to say it's about even, so it's not fantastic money. But I think that fight goes the distance 100%. So have a look at that for the fight to go the distance. 2 heavyweights going the distance doesn't happen too often, but I think it happens here. And talking about another heavyweight fight that I think is going to go the distance, as much as I'd love to see him pull off a knockout, Hughie Fury 24-3, 10 rounds against Marius Wack 36-6. Perfect kind of fight, really, I think, for Hughie at this part of his career. He needs a win against someone like that. If he looks impressive, hopefully they can make a fight for him after that with a bigger name and a juicier fight. Lawrence Sokoli 14-0. He was supposed to be boxing for the world title, but since Glowacki had to pull out with coronavirus, in steps another Polish fighter. This guy is called Nikodem Jezewski. He's 19-0 with a draw, but it's not for the world title. So Okoli's now fighting for the vacant WBO International Cruiserweight title. And the main event, Anthony Joshua 23-1. He defends his WBA, IBF, WBO and IBO World Heavyweight titles against Kubrat Pulev 28-1 over 12 rounds. Eddie, I actually think that this is going to be a much better fight than a lot of people think it's going to be. I've been saying that from the very beginning. I think the fact that Anthony Joshua hasn't boxed in a year will play a factor. I think the fact that Anthony Joshua hasn't boxed in the UK for 2 and a bit years, I think almost 3 years comes into it a little bit. No, I think it's just over 2 years actually. And I also think it comes into it that he hasn't boxed anyone aside from Andy Ruiz for over 2 years as well. So all those things matched up with the fact that Kubrat Pulev isn't much shorter than Joshua. He's just an inch and a half shorter than him. And also the fact that Kubrat Pulev has got such a deep pedigree. Even though Joshua was able to win a gold medal in the Olympics, the much more seasoned amateur is Kubrat Pulev. And yeah, he's got that one loss to Vladimir Klitschko, who was fantastic that night against Pulev. But other than that, man, he's a solid fighter, and I think it's going to be so much more competitive and more dangerous of a fight for Joshua than 99% of people are saying.
I think you're right to a degree. The only thing that plays a part,
age,
and 100%. You cooked the word right out of my mouth. It was he's 39. He's going to be 40 soon. I still think, obviously, you can be aged that much and, obviously still have a great level of experience. And as long as you can still move, you can still do your thing, and you're still capable, and you're not too damaged at this age, you should be able to compete. But the fact is, man, Joshua's obviously a lot younger. He's a lot fresher. You know what I mean? He's got the confidence. He's right the wrong that he had with Andy Ruiz. Even though I felt like Andy Ruiz beat himself in certain spots as well. But man, it's going to be a much better fight. I agree, Joey, than what people think, because Pulev is proud. He believes he can win this. He believes this is an opportunity to come back. I mean, he was beaten by Klitschko, but I'm pretty sure he feels that Klitschko was a much better fighter at the time. That he beat him than when he fought Anthony Joshua. So I mean, and honestly, styles make fights. And I feel like he probably feels that Joshua's style is a little bit better and a little bit more conducive for him to be successful than what Vladimir's style was. You know what I mean? So he's definitely a live dog in the fight. I really think he's going to push Anthony Joshua a little bit. And I do like what you said about him not being in the ring with anybody, of course, other than one particular opponent, Andy Ruiz, who definitely poses a hell of a problem for any opponent that he faces. You know what I mean? But it is a different style matchup. And like you said, he has a hell of an amateur pedigree, Pulev does. And he's just been around the block a few times. So he does have enough to push Anthony Joshua, to great lengths. And I think the fight will go rounds, maybe. But honestly, if it doesn't, in my opinion, I would think that it would be Pulev getting put out of there. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying that Pulev can't get Joshua out, because obviously we've seen Joshua can be knocked out and can be taken apart. But I just see that if it's an early type of thing, that it would be Joshua, not Pulev. Pulev will probably be more, mid to later rounds, you know what I mean, and by then take over.
Yeah, I think the mid-rounds is where Joshua probably gets him out there. I don't think it's going to go points. I think he gets him out in the mid-rounds. And I just want to point out as well, the last time he stopped someone in the first half of a fight was 4 years ago, when he stopped Eric Molina in 3 rounds. And, I think Molina as well was a bit of a late replacement, if I remember correctly. But that's the last time he did anything like that, so it was a late stoppage against Klitschko, a late stoppage against Takam. He went the distance with Parker. He stopped Povetkin in round 7 after a few big moments for Povetkin. Then obviously got knocked out by Ruiz, and then he beat him on points in the rematch. So I don't think it's going to be an early night. I think it's going to be mid-rounds at the very best for Joshua. I think Pulev is, he's too experienced to get took out that early. I think Joshua is going to be really nervous as well about this fight, man. There's a lot on the line. Obviously, they're talking about the big one with Fury. There's a lot of pressure on him. I think he's going to be a bit nervous. And Pulev's going to be full of belief. This fight was supposed to take place back in 2017 when Carlos Takam took the fight. I can't remember what happened, why Pulev couldn't fight him, but yeah, this fight is pretty much 3 years in the making, just over that. Right. And Pulev's got a tremendous jab.
And that's my point with thinking that if anything was going to happen, stoppage watch for Pulev is going to be later. And with Anthony Joshua having that nervous energy and that extra drive to get the job done, would be the reason for him to go and possibly, if he was going to catch him, and get him out early. You know what I'm saying? That nervous energy that maybe he catches Pulev with some kind of shot early on, which he can possibly do, and then take advantage of it, obviously get him out of there. We've seen it happen with Vladimir, but trust me, that's Vladimir, and that's Vladimir on a good day. So, when I'm not trying to say Anthony Joshua was a Vladimir Klitschko, we're not going to go that far. But I am saying that anything early, in my opinion, would be more with Joshua. But as I see the fight going, I see that the later the fight goes, the more that it would swing in Pulev's favor. So, I'm not saying that he's going to win the fight, just if it goes to decision, Pulev, but I am saying that he'll have a better shot the longer the fight goes. The experience, what will get him through the tough storms that he may face with Joshua at different points in the fight. Like you said, the middle rounds with Joshua is going to be real big, pretty much with his attack and that's going to be his time to really shine. But he's going to have to be able to do it over a longer period if Pulev is able to survive those rounds. That's why I was saying, if anything early, it's going to be more to Joshua than Pulev. But this is boxing. Anything can happen. But just look for it to be, as the fight goes on, Pulev is going to do better. I still think Joshua wins, maybe mid to late round stoppage. Maybe. But if he's going to get him out, you know what I mean? I feel like that could be early. It could happen early. That nervous energy could just, maybe catches him and gets him out of it.
Anyway, we'll see, but I'm liking it. It's youth against experience, and it's power against against a boxer, really. You know, Joshua's been the distance just twice, and Pulev, has been the distance 14 times. Moving out now to the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut, USA. One fight to mention over here. It's quite a good one, actually. Richardson Hitchins. I've been hearing a hell of a lot about this young guy. He's 11-0. He takes on former world champion Argenis Mendez, who's 25-5 with 3 draws. Hitchins is saying that he's going to get him out of there. That'll be quite a statement. Ronald Ellis as well. He's a prospect. 17-1 with 2 draws. He's in a 10-rounder against Mati Korobov. That's a very interesting one. Korobov 28-3 with a draw. Obviously, his 3 losses came to who did he lose to? He lost to Chris Eubank Jr. I think which might have been his last fight where he got injured or whatever, and they had to stop the fight. Then he obviously lost a really close one with Jamal Charlo, and then obviously he lost to Andy Lee by KO. So he's a really, really good fighter, and if we're talking about guys with deep amateur experience, this guy is the guy. The main event over there though, Chris Colbert 14-0 for the interim WBA super featherweight world title. He takes on Jaime Arboleda, who's 16-1. Moving out now to the Champion Boxing Gym in Georgia, USA. A couple guys to mention over here. We get to see friend of the show, heavyweight prospect Cassius Chaney, 19-0. He's in an 8-rounder against Jason Bergman, who's 27-18 with 2 draws. All the best to Cassius Chaney. Hopefully he's 20-0 this time next week. And also the son of Evander Holyfield, Evan Holyfield. He's 4-0. He's in a 4-rounder against Donis Reed, who's 3-7. Moving out now to the final card to mention. It takes place in the bubble at the MGM Grand, Las Vegas, Nevada. Let's start with the undercard. We get to see Rabisi Ramirez, the Olympic gold medalist. He is 5-1. He takes on Brandon Valdez, who's 13-1. Also on that undercard, we get to see Edgar Berlanga, 15-0 with 15 first round KOs. One of the most exciting guys in the sport of boxing right now. He's back here. He takes on Ulises Sierra, who's 15-1 with 2 draws. And Sierra, in his 1 loss, wasn't stopped. He lost his last fight to Vladimir Shishkin on points. He was pretty much shut out. That one was 11 months ago. And in that fight there, it took place in Iowa. That's an interesting one. Imagine Berlanga actually gets to 16-0 with 16 KOs in the first round. That'd be crazy. Also on the bill, Felix Verdejo, 27-1. He's back. It's a very kind of weird fight. He's back. He gets in there with Masayoshi Nakatani, who's 18-1. His 1 loss came in his last fight, which was a year and 5 months ago now, when he lost on points to Teofimo Lopez. A lot of people were very critical of him after the fight, saying that Teofimo is a hype job and all the rest of it because he couldn't knock this guy out, when in reality, this guy was a very tough guy. So I don't expect Verdejo to get him out of there. That could be quite interesting if he sticks around and asks Verdejo questions late on. Very interesting. But the main event, the main attraction, it's a non-title bout, which is quite interesting. But anyway, it's up at Super Feather. Shakur Stevenson, 14-0. He takes on Toka Khan Clary, who's 28-2. Toka Khan is a guy that I know was sparring good rounds with Tevin Farmer in the build-up to the Jojo Diaz-Tevin Farmer fight, in which he lost. And he's a very good fighter, Toka Khan Clary. Obviously, he's got the 2 losses. One came to John Gamino, and one came to Kid Galahad. But yeah, he's a tough guy. I don't think he's had too much notice. I don't think either guy's had too much notice, actually. I think they're pretty much stepping in there with 2 or 3 weeks notice, the pair of them. So all the best to both guys, but obviously we want Shakur to win that one. He'll be 15-0. It's over 10 rounds. Not sure why it's not for a title. I've kind of forgot. I think he's a world champion, I'm sure, Shakur Stevenson, isn't he? Even though he moved up, or is he? No, he's not. Of course he's not. He moved up, didn't he? He's, it's a shame because he won the world title, a year and 2 months ago at featherweight, and then didn't defend it at all. He just vacated it, moved straight up, and he's trying to get a shot, obviously, for the WBO title, which Jamel Herring currently holds. He's right up there in position. So anyway, we shall see. It's very, very messy, in the WBO rankings at super featherweight. There's a lot of guys at the top waiting for shots. But that's it, though, for the preview part. We did the reviewing. We brought the first guest in, of course. We then started part 2 by doing the news part, then Eddie's quiz question. We've just done the preview part. The final thing to do before we wrap up part 2 and finally end the show is to welcome our second and final guest on this week's podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated super lightweight prospect. It is, of course, Mr. Harlem Eubank. Harlem, welcome to the show, my man.
Hello, thanks for having me, man.
My pleasure, Harlem. I appreciate you doing this. We got there in the end. So, Harlem, you're fresh off your win last week. I do want to get to that. But first off, you've managed to compile this record now of 11-0. Really impressive. I want to touch on a couple of those fights. Let's start at the beginning. Obviously, the Eubanks have got that strong connection with Brighton. You were born there like a lot of the family. You made your pro debut in Brighton too, which is great. Do you remember much of your pro debut?
Yeah, for sure. It was a case of I'd been pro I turned pro, and it was maybe 4 months without anything going on, trying to get on a show, trying to kick off my pro career, and there was a show coming up in Brighton being put on by Scott Welch, who was one of my amateur trainers, one of the who owns the Brighton Hove Boxing Club, and they were putting on a local show. So, he was like, the show's going to be in 3 weeks' time or something like that. It was a pretty short notice one. Nice. And I was like, yeah, let me jump on that. Got everyone riled up for it, sold a load of tickets, and kicked off my pro career in Brighton.
Wicked, man. And obviously, having such a famous surname, especially in British boxing, do you kind of feel pressure? Obviously, you got Chris Eubank Jr. with just tons of pressure. He's got not just the surname, but the first name as well. Do you feel the same sort of pressure having the surname like that?
There's time. It definitely comes with more pressure because people watch the fights differently, I think. You can be... you can not have even fought yet, have your debut, and people are expecting to see the finished product, and that's not the case. It takes time to learn the art form. It takes time to learn, and like many years of dedicated practice. And a lot of the time, people expect to see the finished product attached to the name straight away, and that's not the case. It's always a building process. So. There's always harsher judgment and competitors that want to bring their best to get that name on their record as well.
That's a brilliant answer, man. And in your third fight, obviously, you boxed in Monte Carlo. What was that like?
It was a strange experience, to be honest. Monte Carlo, it's a little bit like a show city. It sounds great, but really, you're just in an unbelievable hotel for 2 or 3 days. It sounds flash, but when you're making weight and doing them type of things, it's just like another place. There's another. You're in your room. Restricted eating, so it's not a place you can enjoy. It's just I don't know if Monte Carlo and the flashiness of it attached to preparing for a boxing fight I don't think they go together too well, so you don't get the experience of the actual place maybe. But yeah, it was my first time fighting abroad, and Adam brought up a few opponents for me and picked the more difficult one, and we went for a challenge early on in my career to test myself.
Yeah. And then obviously you put together another 6 wins. Then we get to 2020. Let's discuss the 2020 you've had. It's been impressive despite it only really starting off late on in September. Obviously you took on Martin McDonagh. McDonagh obviously had that one loss to Daniel Egbunike in a fight that I was ringside for at York Hall. You got in there with him though. You had that previous with him from the amateurs, in which I believe he came out on top. But on that night back in September, you did a proper job on him and took him out in the final round. Tell us about that. It was a brilliant win, mate.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. I guess it was a fight that could brew nicely for the boxing public. Obviously, with the history, it's never for me. It's never. You know, boxing. It's not personal. It's there's no emotion attached to. There's no emotion attached to previous results in the amateurs. My mindset is all on my progress. So I see myself as a different fighter every month. So it was a case of, although I think he kind of attached a lot to the amateurs and a lot of confidence, to the amateur encounters, it was a completely different fight from the way I was looking at it, and I approached it and executed it as so.
Yeah, and like I said, it was impressive. And then obviously last week, you take on the aforementioned Daniel Egbunike, both you being undefeated, both of you being the only 2 men to beat McDonagh, like we say. It was a hotly anticipated fight. And again, though, you get in there, you show even more improvements, and you get the win. Tell us about it. A brilliant fight, obviously, midweek.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It's a different style. Daniel Egbunike has a completely different style to Martin. Martin was more always on the back foot, looking to just kind of tag and move. So it was always going to be a different type of fight. And I knew Daniel was going to be a lot more in front of me and look to counter as well, and look to launch his attack. So I knew it was going to be a different fight, and it was just about applying a different aspect of my game. And it was, it's a style which is more fan friendly in terms of how the fight plays out. With Martin, I had to make it rough in there. But with Daniel, it was a little cleaner. There was times where we went on the inside and it was, a battle of strength and picking shots, but it was a lot cleaner work than the type of fight I had to make it with Martin.
And obviously after the fight there was talk about this possible shot at the English title. Is that the the kind of major title that you've got your eyes on at this minute?
Well, that fight was an English title eliminator, so I think naturally people are going to be talking about the English title now. But my eyes really aren't on individual titles. My eyes are just on progress, and when the next fight arises, I'll be ready to put in another performance and show more improvements. And for me, it doesn't really matter at this stage what title's attached to them fights. It's about taking, again, competitive fights and learning in the ring and developing in the gym and showing them improvements and how they play out on fight night.
And obviously you mentioned you're trained by Adam Booth. Who else is in the gym with you, Harlem? Because I'm always kind of forgetting, obviously you had Joe Joyce in there at one point, then he was kind of doing his own thing. Who's in the gym on a day-to-day with you?
So day-to-day, obviously it varies and who's in training camp and who's got fights coming up, but we've got the girls. We've got Ellie Scottney and Shannon Courtney. We've got Michael Conlon, Josh Kelly, Abbas Baru, and we have loads of other boys as well. It's a great group of fighters, lots of talent, and we all bounce off each other.
And I want to ask you this as well, Harlem. Obviously, you're ending 2020 on a brilliant couple of wins. When ideally would you like to be back out in the ring in 2021? How soon?
Early in the new year. I went back into the gym today and just continued to work the next things that I need to develop my game. I'd like to be out early next year. Realistically, early February. This kind of date seems the most realistic. But yeah, early in the new year, and I'd like to be busy fighting very regularly and getting active next year.
Excellent.
I'm excited. 2021.
Brilliant. I am for you too. I want to ask you this as well. We're in the month of December. Every single December, everyone that we speak to, we like to ask, what's on your Christmas wish list? In a realistic world, what do you want to? Where do you want to be this time next year?
This time next year, I'd like to be at least 15, 16 fights deep. And again, just developing with each one, showing improvements each one, and after a year of 5-6 fights, showing improvements at the same rate, I think I'll be in a very strong position at the end of the year in 2021. So yeah, that's on my wish list. As you know, in this game, it's about the work. There's less luck attached. It's more how do you get these developments in training and the fights. So yeah, it's maybe not a wish, but a plan to make the improvements and get the fights and show the same level of growth in each fight.
Well, there we have it. It sounds like a plan. It sounds like a good plan to me. And just finally, Harlem, if you've got any closing words just to our listeners, just the people that support you, and also if you've got any sponsors to thank as well, if you want to give them a quick mention as well, no problem.
Yeah, but I want to thank New Era Metals for supporting me through the process. Raw Sport, some of the best nutrition in the game. Plants Only by Gaz, vegan chef quality, and yeah, that's about it. But yeah, follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Harlem Eubank straight through, and follow the process.
There we have it. Follow that journey, believe me. But listen, Harlem, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you, my friend. Congrats once again on the win last week. I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I hope we can catch up again at some point in 2021.
For sure, bro. For sure. Appreciate it, man. Have a Merry Christmas yourself.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 269 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A massive thank you to our two guests on this week's podcast, the reigning Commonwealth and WBO Intercontinental Light-Heavyweight champion Lyndon Arthur, and of course the undefeated and exciting super lightweight prospect Harlem Eubank. There has been one piece of news break whilst we've been recording the show, and it's that the son of British boxing legend Ricky Hatton will be making his pro debut in February of 2021. Campbell Hatton has signed a promotional contract with Matchroom Boxing, so that'll be interesting. Of course, he's the spitting image of his father, for those that haven't seen a picture of him. But that's about everything from myself. Thank you all for listening to this week's podcast. Remember to tell a friend about the podcast. If you have any quiz questions as well for Eddie Chambers, be sure to send them in to me on Twitter at BoxHard Podcast. Enjoy your weekends, people, of course. Stay safe, and we shall see you all again next week.